The smartest guy with a bow tie in Chattanooga, Tennessee, David Toulis.
Okay, it shouldn't just be an issue only when somebody's getting, when a community feels as if excessive force is being used. It should be an ongoing campaign to say we need the oversight board, a citizens oversight board. It needs to be championed every day, not waiting until the next accident or what we feel like the excessive force have been used.
Well,
spoke up about it, like they would like to have this oversight board. They've done some research, and in Nashville placed it on the ballot for citizens to vote on it. So maybe we can adopt that same process, but it doesn't just start with city council. It starts.
This is Demetrius Coonrod, city council member, and I'm asking her Tuesday evening after the regular meeting about police reform. It's something that I have to bring up. It's not something that is in the air. Why is police reform not in the air?
Or with our citizens voicing their concerns about it. And it takes a collective effort of everybody, not just citizens coming to scream at the city council. Let's work together. Let's sit down. Let's brainstorm. Let's talk about how does the oversight board look and how would you like it to work? On an oversight board, but we even
Thank you. Investigation. Well, that's Chattanooga City Council, 3 of the council members whom I pigeonholed yesterday on your behalf. So what is your report? You, my listener, tell me what you've heard and give me an assessment. Please give me an assessment. I'd like to know what you make of these men and woman, the female council member, Demetrius Coonrod. The number is 800-8949, 800-8949. Police reform has faded from view. It's not that important. It's not something we want to get too worked up about. We don't want to go out of our way too much. There's not been enough clamor. I've not gotten enough phone calls, enough emails. No comment, Russell Gilbert says. Russell Gilbert is a descendant from former slaves in our country. No comment on this topic. Is it me? Is it just me asking a stupid question? Is that the problem that we have here between you and City Council of Chattanooga? Well, maybe I'm just being an annoyance, and maybe I'm just trying to stir up a bit of news when there doesn't seem to be a great deal of news coming out of Chattanooga City Council. There was a delay on a vote to surplus 3 buildings, something that made Franklin McCauley very happy. Franklin McCauley saying we just can't have these public assets let go, particularly when these may end up in the hands of a rapacious developer who's going to make a killing and then maybe rent the building back to city at a high markup, and the taxpayer is not protected. That's Franklin McCauley's position against the surplusing of 3 buildings. The matter was just put on the table for a while longer. So you see, the biggest news was something that didn't happen yesterday, and there was not much. There was no one to really complain about the uproar of a few weeks ago when Diana Watt was dragged from her car, and a few days before that, Avery Gray's daughter, Kennedy, dragged from her car and arrested, and Diana Watt still facing 8 charges, 3 of which at least are extraordinarily bogus in their application of the statute to her. And one case, that of the minor, Avery Gray's daughter, dismissed by a magistrate in juvenile court. So that, and then there was a story in the Times Free Press. I believe there was just one story about, I think by Zach Peterson, about a rape case that's on the city department's books that has, by an officer, apparently, women were declining to come forward and fearful for themselves, and the department just sort of digesting this report, though nothing has happened. And I believe there was just one story about that case from about 3 years ago, and something is unexamined and unmoved, right? Not moved upon. Why is police reform so far away? Why are members of the public so indifferent? Why is there not someone to come and say, here's my experience? Why is it? Because we've been trained to be accepting of these things? Is it because we've been trained by public education, by the media, to simply accept these sorts of things and not take ownership? I believe that may be part of the answer that I would want to suggest and have you consider, that somehow we have become immune to sentiment or anger or reflection about the experiences of other people that we read about maybe in the press or hear about on TV. We see these things just pass us by, and we just say, well, that's interesting. Very good, interesting report today. And somehow, because we don't own the city, right? The city doesn't really belong to us. It's happening in a remote place. It's like hearing about a murder in Bangalore, Pakistan, and versus hearing about it on our own street corner. Well, one certainly matters more to us than the one far away, but somehow when things are happening or not happening in Chattanooga City Council, we say, well, it's all kind of far away. It's all remote. And I know there are reasons a lot of people are like that. Here in Chattanooga area, Hamilton County, Christendom is largely not very salty. And people who are practicing Christians don't care about how the law works. They don't care about justice or injustice. And they seem to have largely concern for their personal piety and their personal peace and personal problems that Christianity is there to solve, right? Christianity is there to solve your bad dealings with your children, or a problem with a husband or a wife, or business problems. Maybe you have a mother-in-law problem, and Christianity is there to maybe solve that problem. Right? What kind of quiet time do you have? It's there to provoke an answer to questions like that. How are you reading your Bible a lot? These are the kinds of questions that Christians concern themselves about. And personal piety, personal peace, and larger questions are left aside. And we know that that's true. We know that when, for example, City Council proposed gay partner benefits, there was plenty of standing room in the foyer outside the City Council chamber. Why was it that I could, as a journalist, walk unobstructed right into those two front doors, either of the 2 front doors of the City Council building, and have room to stand in the foyer when the City Council was endorsing homosexual unions and homosexual activity? Why were there not so many Christians in Chattanooga and Hamilton County packing the area that there would not be even room for blocks out to get there? that I would have to thread my way through crowds of people concerned about the moral state of the city. Some with posters, some with children, of course, making groups. Some even bringing their lawn chairs to sit and wait things out there at the city council meeting. No, not at all. It was all clear all the way to the front door of city council building on Lindsay Street. Why did I not have to thread my way past hundreds and thousands of concerned citizens when that vote came up? Well, it's because we have been, by our religious misconceptions, perhaps, anesthetized to think that it doesn't really matter. 800-8949, 800-8949. Make sure that this evening you go to the Olive Branch restaurant. It's a market and a little cafe here in East Ridge. The special today is the chicken marsala, and also meatballs and spaghetti, and the vegan menu item to mention to you to think about enjoying with your wife and children this evening, or your husband and children, is the lentil stew. Make sure you choose Olive Branch restaurant here, deli and market here in East Ridge. Chicken marsala is today's special. Please go by there, and if you're going today, ask for that. Tomorrow, the special is Paputsakya Little Shoes is the name on the menu. So you may not know what that means, but if you just look at it behind the glass there, a little bit of steam rising across the pane, you'll say, that's what I want to have. That's my plate right there. I'm dying to sit down and enjoy a nice lunch or dinner at Olive Branch. This is David Tulis. My argument here is that you should love your neighbor and buy local. And it's a highly prejudicial frame of mind, highly prejudicial in favor of local, Dr. Nuga-centric. They call me the blogger with the biggest pen, that being the tower from which emanates our powerful, robust, and truthful signal here on the Sean Hannity Station, 92.7 FM. And on the digital side, it's 95.3 FM HD4. That's high definition, channel 4. You have to have a special radio for that. We're live on Facebook. And if you have a late model TV, one of those LCD or LCD sets, you'll find that there's a YouTube channel, and you can watch this on YouTube. And notice that that my headline for the segment today, if you look on your menu, is police reform, evermore a vote as council does something. I can't read the rest of it. It's off the screen there, but that's my headline for this segment here on the David Tulis Show, live every weekday. And the Sissy Cop Award goes to Chatsworth, Georgia, in the tasing of an 87-year-old woman from Syria who's been in the country for 22 years or so. Her son Solomon has been here longer. He's the father of Martha Dunay and Timothy Dunay, who've been quoted in the press, and their names are probably global names today. And the story about the courageous work of Chief Josh Etheridge, the police chief in Chatsworth, charging this woman under the obstruction statute, which is really just is vicious to charge a person that way, and to do it to justify your use of violence, to justify they wouldn't. These three officers were terrified for their lives. I'll have you know, as a matter of fact, they were terrified for their lives. There's a great there's a great quote from the chief. He says, "In my opinion, it was the lowest use of force we could have used to simply stop that threat at the time. An 87-year-old woman with a knife still has the ability to hurt an officer." Now, that may be true in Georgia, and I wonder if it's true in Tennessee. Are Tennessee officers that courageous, that have that much steel in their breast that they would agree with that? The question's always going to be, why did the officer not retreat? Chief Etheridge says, and he's having this discussion with a reporter from the local paper, that something's happened that he's been in charge of, and that really it is an enormity. It is an enormity to have your city employee shoot you with an electrical stun gun with two prongs going out, piercing your clothes, and administering electrical shock so violent that you were thrown to the ground. The thought behind that would be, if the officer had retreated. Now here's the scene, right? There's this old woman with a knife, and she's cutting dandelion leaves for a local spicing of the evening dinner. It's late in the afternoon, Friday, and she's in an elevated position. The officer, could have easily fell down. He says, notice the lack of grammar. At which time, here, this is the part that's going to give you a sleepless night. You, my listener, the sleepless night, thinking of the officer in peril, just in peril. And with her being in an elevated position, he could have easily fell down. At which time, okay, get this now. At which time she could have been progressing on top of him, and deadly force could have been used at that point in time. And that was the whole goal, to try to avoid using any type of force. But if we have to use force, use the minimum force. So these are courageous officers, and the restraint that they show to use the minimum force of an electric cattle prod on a citizen of that town who's been in that town for many, many years. The Al-Bisharas and the Donays live there. They are practicing Christians, but even if they had been Muslims, it wouldn't matter. Even if they had been Hindus or atheists, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter what her background is. If she's an old woman, clearly not harming anyone, clearly not understanding what they're saying to her, and calling out the name of, she's giving a reference, her son's reference, and they don't know the name of a reference as to anything else she's saying in Arabic. They think that the name that they're hearing is just a name, just a word. She's just mumbling something, right? But she's trying to say, look, call this man who speaks English my son Solomon. She's giving the name of either a son or another relative. And this is not enough. She's not going to throw the knife down, and because she's refusing the command to obey, right? She's refusing to obey, right? Rather than come up to her and club her, they do the courageous thing, the high-tech thing. They tase her from 10 or 15 feet distance. So it's not to be like private gang. If they were members of a private gang, a Crip or a Blood, they would just whack her with a club and be done with it. But no, they do the proper thing to tase Martha Al-Bishara. And the Sissy Cop Award, I'll say it's of the week. I was going to say it of the day, but that if I said that, I would have to provide you with a bit of comic relief every day. And cops we have in the area are very good. And so there's not really that much kind of state crime to report. So I'll say Sissy Cop Award of the week here on the David Phillips Show. The number is 800-8949, 800-8949. And make sure you go to the Olive Branch again. Today, the special is chicken marsala and meatballs and spaghetti and lentil stew, also on the special list today. And we have to ask ourselves, why are we calling for reform? Well, reform is only local economy, right? Local economy is my analysis here every day. And reform in the policing sector, in the executive state sector of local economy, if we believe the Police Executive Research Forum Chuck Wexler papers, and I have the main paper I've read very carefully and recommend it, is the use of space, cover, and time. With space and cover and time, we can end the mass killings by cops of Americans. We can save American lives, as Jason Bourne was told when he was turned into a robot. We do all this to save American lives. Are we going to save American lives with disarmament? Probably. Are we going to save American lives by having police wear business suits instead of military-style uniforms? Probably. Are we going to save American lives if we make our police officers have no weapon at all, but cell phones? Every officer will have a cell phone and a camera to report, make record of any violation of any real law. And there will be respect to the officer by even a gang member, even former gang members such as Isaiah Goodbody Raw, who's looking for a job, by the way. If you have a position, he's looking for work. A married man now looking for employment. He is what am I trying to say? I lost my train of thought. Well, this is David Toulis, and we are here at 92.7 Nooga Radio, brought to you by Nooganomics.com. And the number is 800-8949 if you want to get on, 800-8949. Police reform, space, cover, and time. We can save lives. We can have a richer, more prosperous local economy. And I think we can have more hope in the future and more confidence of a good things developing in our area, Hamilton County, Chattanooga, if there are fewer depredations of this kind, fewer abuses of this kind. They have a toll that I think is incalculable, meaning it's not just that we can't figure it out how big it is, but it's probably much larger than we would want to grant. So we are about the free market. We are about local economy and prosperity, looking out for the other, looking out for our customers, even our enemies, right? We look out for our enemies and make them prosper too. And if we can do that, as Christ died for the church, of course, in the same manner, the marketplace will take care of all needs, all problems will be slowly solved, man by man, person by person, child by child, woman by woman. That's my goal here, to encourage that process. The name is David Tulis, Nooga Radio. Go to Nooganomics.com and find out the big story about Saudi Daisy and the fatal car crash.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Stephen Foster, the Democratic congressional candidate, is going to miss Election Day. He'll be in jail. TFP reports he's